I'm Leon Todd for G66. Welcome to another Tuesday Tone Tip. On today's video, I want to talk about DynaCab blends. I'm on the FM9, but this will work perfectly well on the FM3 and the Axe-FX 3. Before we start talking about the DynaCab blends though, this is a PRS SE DGT in standard tuning plugged straight into the FM9. I'm using the Plexi 100 watt 1970, which got an update in firmware 6 for the FM9. It's sounding pretty amazing. And I'm using two DynaCabs blended together in here, the 4x12 1960 TV in each slot with different microphones. I've gone in and just tweaked the alignment between them. So I've bumped cab 1 by 15 millimeters. I have a separate video talking about this in itself. That's a great little trick to just kind of smooth out the overall response of these blends. In the preamp section, the low cut's at 80 Hertz and the high cut is at 8K. And I have a little bit of the London plate reverb on here. Let's just have a listen to our starting point. We will hear some cleaner sounds and some even dirtier tones later in the video, but for now, let's stick with that Plexi model doing the classic Plexi thing. Let's go to the cab block over here, and very briefly, I want to reiterate that align trick that I've talked about previously. So I've got a dynamic mic over in this cab slot and a ribbon mic in this cab slot. The dynamic is set up to be a bit brighter than the ribbon. Let's hear it. One way to think about that is the ribbon is bringing all the low end and low mid-range response. The dynamic is taking care of the higher mids and the top end in there. One thing that I really like though is just bumping this alignment, like I said earlier. So we'll hear the difference between 0 and 15 on here. This is just going to bump them very slightly out of phase, kind of like in the real world. It is pretty difficult to get two mics to be perfectly in phase. What it's going to do by just bumping it a small amount is keep the low end response really nice and tight, but it's going to smooth out the high end a little bit. So 0, then 15. Let's go back to the actual cabinets that I'm using in here, because one trick that I haven't talked about on this Tuesday Tone Tip series is using different DynaCabs. We've used different microphones on the same DynaCab, but not different cabs. So if you take a look at this long list up here, look at all these different options in here. One great thing to do is to take two cabinets that you like the sound of, either select different mics on there, or use the properties of the different cabs. Some cabs might be a little bit darker sounding or brighter sounding naturally than others, and use that same trick of blending something slightly darker and smoother and something brighter and, I'm not going to say harsh in there, but let's just say more strident together to get the best of both worlds over there. So I'm going to stick with this dynamic mic here on the 1960 TV. That's bringing plenty of cut, and again, that kind of strident quality in there. But what I want to do over here is I'm going to solo this ribbon mic over here, and I'm going to just roll through a couple of different cabs on here, or DynaCabs, I should say. Same mic position and everything like that. I just want to really lean into that kind of darker, warmer character over there. Let's hear a few. You could hear with that same DynaCab mic position, different cabs were brighter and darker. I really like this 2x12 Class A 30 watt on here with the ribbon selection. That's just a little bit smoother than the 1960 TV on there. I've still got the 1960 TV on the dynamic setting, so let's hear that soloed, and then I will bring in this Class A 30 watt DynaCab on there. And we've got two different cabinets with the same core amp in here. Of course, I could fine tune these either by playing around with that alignment or just playing around with the positions on here. You know, I could make cab 2 even brighter if I like, and cab 2 even darker by moving the virtual mics on there. But again, that's sort of a hybrid approach. You can do anything you like with the DynaCabs in here. I really like that combo though, the sort of Class A Vox style thing with the 4x12 Marshall style thing, two classic British speaker cabinets on there with this classic British amp on there. You know, so much of the tone and character of the classic amps we love actually comes from the speaker cabinets and the type of speakers they were using. So this is a great kind of Vox Marshall hybrid. Let's try another DynaCab blend on here. I'll try to give you maybe 2 or 3 different ideas. I'm going to go to scene 2 over here, where I've set up the Band Commander, one of my favorite clean amps, and I'm using the 2x12 double verb DynaCabs over here. So I'm going to go to the neck pickup on here. I've pulled up the push-pull pot on here, so it's in the split mode. Let's have a listen to it. That's really, really lovely. Just a kind of nice, fat, clean Fender tone on there. I know straight away what I want to blend with this. One of my favorite DynaCabs in here, and definitely my favorite DynaCab for clean sounds, is the 4x12 EV. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to keep the dynamic mic over here. We're going to leave cab 2 on there. I quite like how kind of present and punchy this is, even though it's a dynamic mic on a 2x12 Fender cab. There's not as much fizz as that 1960 TV cab had over there. So we'll leave that. What I'm going to do over here is I'm going to really lean into the dark character of the ribbon mic, and I'm going to select the 4x12 Rumble EV12L. This is just a great cab for clean sounds. I might change the mic because this might be a little bit too dark for what I'm going for, but we'll keep it on the ribbon selection. Condenser's a little bit more balanced on there, so I'm going to roll with that. Let's hear the combination now. This should work pretty well. I think they complement one another really, really well. You can, of course, play around with the relative levels of each of these DynaCabs on here. Another thing that you could do would be to pan cab 1 and cab 2 slightly left and slightly right. Let's go say -25 on each of them. And because the frequency response on each of them is different, but we're still blending them together, and we've got this little align offset, this will kind of widen the stereo image on here in this cab block. Let's hear it. love that combination for clean sounds. One last example while we're here. I've got the USA Mark V Red Extreme set up for some giant chungus over here. You can see the settings on the tone page as well as the output EQ. I've paired it up with the 4x12 Recto Straight, and again, a dynamic ribbon blend. Let's just check it out. One fun thing I've been playing around with blending with the DynaCabs is that a lot of the time you're playing like a 100 watt or a 90 watt boogie amp, you've got a 4x12 or a 2x12 cabinet to go with it. Those amps will blow up smaller speakers that don't have enough power handling capacity, but in the digital realm, we don't have to worry about that. So I'm going to get rid of Cab 1 over here, which is currently using a ribbon mic on the 4x12. I'm going to choose a small speaker over here. Let's go, say, for the 1x8 5F1 Tweed on here. And I'm going to play around with some different mics on there. I'll just leave the mic centered on there. This is going to have a really gnarly, disgusting sound about it. In fact, if I wanted to emulate the sound of plugging a really high wattage amplifier into a low powered speaker, I could come to the amp block speaker tab and turn the speaker drive and compression up. I'm just going to leave it where it is for now because we're just going for a tonal thing here. So yeah, let's hear a small speaker with a big amp. That to me is super fun because, again, in the real world, you're literally playing with fire there. That's kind of a dangerous proposition to plug a high-powered, high-gain amp into a small speaker, whereas plugging into a 4x12 is kind of safe. You know what you're getting. Combining them in there is a really fun way to approach blending these DynaCabs. Now, in the Axe-FX 3, you do have 4 cab slots that you can utilize. So you could kind of bake all of these ideas into one super cab block if you wanted to, and use a super dark DynaCab for the low end, a really mid-heavy one for the mid-range, and then a super fizzy one. Blend the levels, play around with the panning, of course, play around with the virtual mic positioning on here using the DynaCabs UI. Play around with the alignment. You can try that really dark with really bright trick. You can try the small speaker with the big speaker trick on there. You can do anything you like, and you can go about creating tones you probably couldn't create with a real world setup unless you had a lot of money and you weren't afraid to blow things up. This is one of the best things about the FM9, FM3, and Axe-FX. It's all about creating your own sound and really pushing the boundaries of guitar sounds. And with that, I'd love to know your favorite DynaCab combinations and your favorite new amps in firmware 6. Let me know any other questions or comments, and I will see you all next week for another Tuesday Tone Tip. Cheers.